Thematic and Institutional Inquiry Hearings. Today is a continuation of the presentation with Rabbi Bowier, and to begin this morning, shall we stand to observe a few moments of meditation. Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning, Mr. Witness. We want to welcome you. Please activate the witness's mic. We want to welcome you this morning.
Thank you.
And thank you for your indulgence in obliging to come for the continuation of this session. Commissioners will be asking questions, but to set it going, I thought to take you back a little on an event I think you left out, or you forgot to speak about your peace mission on behalf of President Doe during in 1990, I guess. I think Councillor Winston Totman must have been part of or head of that delegation. And then there was a meeting in Sierra Leone. If you could kindly speak to that. And then secondly, Sally Townsend. Whatever it is you will say about him if you do know his role. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As I said the first day when I came here, all that I have said here are simply headlines. The details are very many. In fact, the occasions are very many. It is true that I was part of the Winston Tubman delegation that went to the United States in May 1990. When the war started to escalate, President Doe saw the need to seek help to stop the war. He wrote to the Organization for African Unity, to the head of that organization at that time, Dr. Salim Salim of Tanzania, who was the Secretary General. The answer from the OAU was that it was Liberia's internal affair, and therefore the OAU could not and was not going to do anything about it. The President of Liberia wrote to the United Nations. The reply from the United Nations was that it was the internal affairs of the Republic of Liberia and they were not going to do anything about it. Those letters can be found in the archive of the Executive Mansion. Contact Mr. Valentine, who controlled the archive until a few months ago when he was retired. Mr. Valentine is alive. He's in Monrovia, Liberia, and he will be happy to show you those letters. When those efforts failed, President Doe decided to fall back on our traditional friends, the Americans. You may recall that President Doe had been pro-Western for a long time. In fact, when he came to power in 1980, there was a situation at the Liberian Embassy in Washington, D.C. that necessitated investigation. I accompanied the Deputy Minister of Information, General Gray Allison, to the United States to investigate. During our tour of the United States in September 1980, the Congress were holding a joint hearing on Liberia. Doe had just come to power in April. The American system did not know very much about him, and they wanted to know who he was. And so they were having a hearing where opposition leaders and other people were there presenting papers. And Deputy Minister Gray Allison was invited, and I accompanied him to Congress in September 1980. At that time, when they had all of the discussions in open session, and the ambassador to the United States at that time was requesting help for the government of Liberia, the government of head of state Doe. The Congress wanted to know whether they could trust Doe, because they didn't know him and he had come to power, and the first person to recognize the Liberian government when Doe took power, the first person to recognize his government was Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi was the first person to broadcast that he recognized the new regime in Liberia. And so they took note of that and was wondering whether Doe had links with socialist people. Of course, it was known that Doe had attended the Marcus Garvey High School on Clay Street that was operated by people who were linked to Moja, and the NSA, with which the Americans have a connection, continuously warned the government about some pro-socialist activity at Marcus Garvey School. I got to know that because I worked with Dr. Huff as his administrative assistant, and the reports from the NSA, the weekly report, passed through me before it got to Minister Huff. And so all of these names that appeared, not all, but most of the names that appeared on the TRC, some of the prominent names were linked to Marcus Garvey School. I'm sure the NSA might be able to help you with that situation, because they should have a good filing system. All they have to do is to go back to 1977, 78, and they will find that out. I need to tell you that because of that Marcus Garvey School, the president of Liberia, William R. Talbot Jr., expressed concern about the Marcus Garvey School and said that Dr. Huff should do something about it. The living witnesses to prove this point are Dr. Walter Richards, he a pastor of a Baptist church, the Salem Baptist Church. He's a resident of Clay Ashland. Mrs. Christine Talbot Norman, Dr. Richards was deputy minister. Mrs. Christine Talbot Norman was deputy minister at that time. Mr. Aloysius, Dr. Aloysius Farah was also at the ministry, and I was there. And we had a meeting. Dr. Huff called a strategy meeting to decide what to do with the Marcus Garvey High School. Some people said it should be closed down. Other people argued that we did not have the legal right to close it down without justification. And so the end of the meeting, I took minutes of that meeting, and all of my documents and my minutes and everything I have copied somewhere. And the result of that meeting was that the Ministry of Education, the senior staff, decided to declare all night schools in the Monrovia area as substandard. Now, I'm telling you the strategy that were used to close down the Marcus Garvey School. All night schools in Monrovia were declared substandard, and they were asked to reapply for recertification. And in that process, Marcus Garvey did not qualify. And and Daha Marcus Garvey died before the coup. I'll carry you through that to let you know that the Americans are not dumb people. They track people down from your cradle to the grave. And so they knew that Doe had some connection with Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey had some connection with Moja. Moja had some connection with the liberation movements in Africa and were linked to a pro-socialist stance at one point and all that kind of thing. So they asked whether Doe had any socialist link before they could think about helping him or not. September 1980. The part of the meeting that we could hear said that they have checked Doe out. He had no socialist link. He was just a young man who was prime for grooming, and they should not let him be because Gaddafi was trying to reach out to him, and every effort should be made to support him so that he won't go that way. And so they asked us to leave the hall while they went into a secret session with the Central Intelligence Agency at Congress. The CIA people came into the room and we had to leave for the secret session. They had that secret session, and when we came back into the room, it was announced that Doe was someone they could do business with. And so that day, General Allison had the occasion to telephone to Monrovia to inform Doe that he was somebody that the Americans could work with. This was September 1980. We fast forward to May 1990. Winston Tubman delegation appointed to go to the United States to negotiate. On that delegation, I do not remember all the members, but I will try to remember those who I know. But Mr. Winston Tubman is right across the road there in his office. Today, Saturday, he might not be there. But I'm sure when he comes here, he'll be able to tell you more. Mr. Winston Tubman was on that delegation. Mr. G. Vargas Matthews of the United People's Party was on that delegation. Mr. Carlos Wallace Smith of the Unity Party was on that delegation. Mr. Chowo Bagai, an official of the government who now works at the Foreign Ministry, was on that delegation. Mr. Maurice Dugule, who was the Minister of Postal Affairs, was on that delegation. Mr. Sally Dix Thompson, a close associate of Mr. William Clay, who was a member of the House from Grand Juda County, and the person who introduced Sally Thompson to President Doe, was on that delegation. Representative William Clay was on that delegation, representing the government and also representing the interests of SNG, Slanger and Clay Public Relations firm, to which Doe had given $1.4 million between March and May 1990 to do public relations in the United States, outside of the operation of the Ministry of Information. Slanger and Clay Company, SNG. They operated from the Pan African Plaza that the United Nations later on came to inherit. On that delegation was Mistress Eugenia Wordsworth Stevenson, Liberia's ambassador to Washington, D.C., USA. On that delegation was myself, Emmanuel Bowier, Minister of Information. Before we left for the United States, there were efforts to make that delegation inclusive. The president thought that it would have been a good thing since the Nimba peace talk had ended, and since in his thinking everything was all right, it would be good to carry Senator Jackson Doe along. He was then former senator. So a delegation was appointed to go to the old man and talk to him. By then he lived in Painesville. I was on that delegation that went to talk to the old man. Well, the end of the situation is that the old man declined to go with the delegation. Why did he decline? Because when we got there, people did not speak in order. I remember, I don't remember Mr. Tubman going along with us. I think it was a delegation of Chorokba guy, I think William Glay and some other people. But when we got there, William Glay spoke to the old man and told him that the chief wanted him to be on the delegation. But William Glay spoke in a way as if the old man should be happy to be on the delegation. And the old man was just, we're not going to take it. He said he's not going anywhere. And sorry, he's not going anywhere. That was after the old man refused to be the chairman of the board of the Liberian Social Security and Welfare Corporation. That after he refused to take a vehicle from the government, all of that. Perhaps if we had gone to the old man to talk to him about the need for him to see this country together and all of that, it would be good. But when you go up to a man like that who has been Minister of Education, who has been Senator, and who have been high in party politics, and you talk to him like you carry a little boy to a toy shop and he should be happy to go, you will not have his cooperation. So Jackson Doe refused to go with us. Jackson F. Doe of Nimba County. We arrived in Washington, D.C. with a message from President Doe for the American people and the American government, outlining our traditional relationship with the United States and calling on them to come to us now in our hour of need because we're on a self-destruction mission. We're inflicting destruction upon ourselves. We recounted the relationship and how when they needed rubber for their military machinery, we supplied them a place for Firestone to do this, how we had cooperated by voting for them at the United Nations, all kinds of things. How when they wanted to create the state of Israel in 1948, they lobbied with us. And it was because Liberia cast the 33rd vote that the state of Israel was created. If we had not cast that vote, it would have been defeated in the Security Council. And we recounted all of that and said, now we are in trouble. We came to seek your help. We went to the White House, we went to the Congress, and we went to the State Department. I will take it in reverse. State Department. We went to the State Department upon arrangement of the Embassy of Liberia, Washington, D.C. I must tell you that at that time it was the high mark of politics in Washington, especially in the Liberian community. Doe has sent this delegation, President Doe has sent this delegation to talk with the people in Congress. The Liberian opposition there was well organized, well financed, well connected. And so we were beating our head against a stone wall. Because I had worked in Washington, D.C. from 1983, coming home for a few months in 84, going back in 84 and staying there until 87. When you had all the principal power brokers in the opposition actively engaged in the anti-Doe campaign. They were well furnished. You have former Peace Corps people who had worked here before and have been friendly with people here. The opposition did not fail to make their connection with these people. You have people who have worked with USAID on projects, who have worked with the Fulbright group. And so the opposition, who mostly comprised people in the business and finance, like Mr. Salif, people from the academia, like Dr. Sawyer, Dr. Dr. Sayon, people from the student movement, and Yula, like who were you, and all these people, they were all, I mean, everything was lined up. The opposition was in fact, no government in the history of Liberia have had a more organized opposition than the Dole government. Toba government, you didn't have that much organization because when Toba was in power, many of the people who were in opposition to Dole were also in the government. But when Dole came to power, the opposition really had it. And you had people with connections. Like, for instance, you had Mr. Harry Greaves was well connected. He was working for the Washington, not working, but he was writing occasional articles for the Washington Post. I don't know whether he was working, so I cannot guarantee that. But he had regular publications in the Washington Post. And most of them came as guest editorials and commentaries on situation in Liberia. And of course, the Washington Post took it to be that Harry was analyzing things from a very professional point of view and all of that. But Harry had his own situation with the Dole government, and he would have been happy to see it go any day. So in short, we had, it's like you going to a guy with a single barrel gun and he's standing there with a nuclear weapon to blow you up. That was the situation with our delegation and the opposition we met there. We're supposed to go to talk to certain persons in the Washington circle, in the power block. And before we could even talk to those persons, because of the opposition activities in Washington, D.C., after we arrived and before we arrived, we got message back from people like Senator Edward Kennedy, who had agreed previously to meet the delegation. He sent word by his staff, chief of staff, that morning to say that he has no desire to receive the delegation. And he had a lot of things to do. So we did not meet with him. We went to the State Department, and the State Department had arranged to have us have what they call proximity talks. You see, when we asked them to help us stop the war, they agreed, and they sent for the National Patriotic Front of Liberia to come to Washington, D.C. to talk with us. So the Americans started that situation about bringing people together to talk in Washington, D.C. Mr. Thomas Bowier, who was the defense spokesperson for the MPFL, was brought to the State Department. We were also taken to the State Department, and the Liberian delegation assumed that we would be meeting with the MPFL as one people from Liberia to discuss with them how we could stop the war. Well, when we got there, our American friends had their own strategy laid out for us. As you know, many times they believe that we are not thinking people, and so they got to think for us. Many times the Americans think that we do not think in Liberia, so they got to think for us. Maybe because when we're designing our flag, we had to use their colors, or we got to use the pattern they have for the flag, and we had to change the city capital to something else, so they assume we don't think. So the plan they had for us was that we were not going to meet the MPFL, and the MPFL would not be meeting with us face to face. Well, they might assume that we might have jumped on each other and killed each other in the State Department. So they said they would keep us in one room, keep the MPFL in another room, and they would take the message from us to the MPFL and bring the message from the MPFL to us, and in that process, they will reconcile us. And we said, but what manner of negotiation is that? They said, we call this proximity talks. You'll be within the proximity of the area, but you're not going to talk to the person. So we told them, look, we came to talk to people who we know. We as Liberians want to talk to the MPFL, and we want them to talk to us directly. But if you want to be carrying messages between us, it means that you want to control the process. Because we do not know whether you will tell us exactly what the people are saying to us. You will go and tell them that the Doe government said this, and you come and tell us the Taylor people said that, and then you in the end will control the process, and you will determine what happened. And since we do not agree with that, we are not going to hold any talks in the State Department. So we left and we came downstairs, and you know, in the old days when you against somebody, or when somebody against your boss man, you can't talk to them. So we came downstairs, and by the time we came downstairs, Thomas Bowier were also downstairs in the lobby, and the members of my delegation looked at him like he was some black snake. Nobody could talk to him. I went over and shook his hands and asked him how he was coming on and everything. That's when I found out from him that he also had rejected the proximity talks. And he also had told the Americans that if he could not talk with us directly, he was not going to send messages through them. You see, in the Liberian culture, when you're settling disputes, there's nothing called proximity talks. Everybody got to face each other and talk it out. So Thomas Bowier, I shook his hand and he left. Well, I did not know that because I shook Thomas Bowier's hands, it meant that I was getting friendly with the MPFL people. I did not know that until later. We went to see the Assistant Secretary responsible for Refugee Affairs. His name I can get because they're on my paper somewhere on earth. And he told us, Mr. Winston Tubman went through all of his diplomacy to talk about how we came there to seek their help, and the people are dying and there's a need to do something about it. And the man was very amused. He acted like he was joking with us. He told us, well, I don't know what you want us to do, because this war, we have estimated that this war will be fought in Monrovia. This was May 1990, and all the people I called before, they are my witnesses. Please call them to confirm that I am not lying, or to confirm that I'm lying, whichever you want to find out. The man said, this war will be fought in Monrovia. This was about May 10, 1990. He said, we have estimated. Then he sent for his aide to bring him a pad. They brought him a yellow pad. He looked on a yellow pad and said that we have estimated that at the end of this war, 1/4 of your population will be wiped out. May 1990. He told us the third thing. Right now, we are in negotiation with other partners, Western partners, for the rebuilding of Liberia. Liberia had not been destroyed, but they were collecting money to rebuild. May 1990. It's necessary for us to have an x-ray of the whole war situation so we can know who is what and what happened at every stage. May 1990, were there begging the people to please help us to stop the war, and they were telling us that the war will be fought in Monrovia. At the end of the war, 1/4 of our population will be wiped out. Now you can have your research section check the population of Liberia in 1990, check the number of persons who died, and see whether his estimate that he said the CIA gave him was true or is true. 1/4 of the population will be wiped out. And in fact, there is nothing that could be done because the war was going to be fought in Monrovia. We left the State Department. We went to Congress. persons in Congress, including a guy called Marlin Damale, a black congressman from California, and other people. Marlin Damale was in the big group of a lot of other Caucasian people who were members of Congress, and they talk and talk and talk, and Marlin Damale did not say a word in that meeting. He didn't say one word. He just looked. But these Congress people told us a few interesting things, and you can ask Mr. Winston Tubman, Councillor Tubman, and other people to tell you what they said. Maurice Dugley was there. He can tell you what they said. Charles Bagai was there. He can tell you what they said. They told us for 10 years we have supported Doe. Everything he wanted, we gave him. For 10 years, he made promises to us, and he has not fulfilled his promises. May 1990, they were saying this. Therefore, we do not trust him anymore. We do not trust him. And we cannot help him to stop any war. Because to help him to stop the war is to encourage him to stay where he is. And we do not want him there. He should leave. So there's nothing we can do to help you. Ambassador Stevenson was there. You can call her up and ask her. Call the Liberian embassy. They will get in touch with her. I was physically present taking notes. So Congress told us in no uncertain terms they could not help us to stop the war. So we left from Congress, and the next day we went to the White House in the morning. Mr. Winston, Councillor Winston Tubman, and the delegation. So our hope now was that the White House would be our savior. Then, when we entered there, we were introduced to a gentleman called David Charles Miller. David Charles Miller. He was then Deputy Security Advisor to President Bush, not the young Bush, the older Bush. George Walker Herbert Bush, the older Bush. George Walker Herbert Bush, who was former Vice President, former Chief of the CIA, former Ambassador of the United States. We met Mr. David Charles Miller in his office in the White House, and he welcomed us and told us that he wanted to discuss some very serious family matters with us because the United States and Liberia are family people. But he had a lot of things to do as a security advisor. So he suggested to us that we should please return to the White House that evening, late afternoon, early evening, about 3, 4, or not later than 5 o'clock. He gave us a special pass to a gate in the back that will allow us to enter the White House. And you can ask Mr. Winston Tubman because he was the head of the delegation. And that special pass that evening took us through the back into the White House, into Mr. David Charles Miller's office. When we arrived and the doors were opened, it was like we were entering a banquet hall. There were foods and drinks everywhere, spread on the table. Like they said, thou preparest a table before me. They spread a table before us. All kind of liquor and food. And we were worried about war, but he had food spread before us. And he was seated with his legs up on his table. And he said, yeah, have a seat, have a seat. And we took a seat, and he said to Councillor Tubman, now what is it you want us to do? And he told us to go and eat, but nobody could eat. We said, let's talk, then we said, what is this that you want us to do? And Councillor Tubman went on with all his diplomacy and everything, talk. And the man repeated exactly what the State Department had told us. And this is a lesson for people who are in government. When one agency of government says something, there should be coordination. So when they say the government of Liberia has spoken, you know the government of Liberia has spoken. When one agency on Capitol Hill says something, another agency on Benson Street says another thing, another agency on Broad Street is saying another thing, then people know that you are not united and they can break through your ranks. The man at the White House told us, look, there's nothing we can do about this situation. Absolutely nothing. Mr. Doe has deceived us for 10 years. We supported him, but he deceived us. Everything he said you were going to do, he didn't do. Now what do you want us to do? He said, my office, this office of, now his boss at that time was the former Oliver North boss. His boss was the former advisor, Oliver North. He said, our office here, the Office of National Security, we monitor the movement of arms and ammunition across the world. We know where every gun is going, except for those who do it clandestinely that we have to find out later on. And he said, we know that Doe went to Romania and got some second-rate weapons. And we know that Taylor went to Spain and got superior weapons. And Taylor has the advantage, the military advantage. And this war will be fought in Monrovia. 1/4 of your population will be wiped out. We can stop this war. He said, you see my telephone? I can pick up my telephone now, call Taylor and stop him in his tracks. He said, I can pick up my telephone. David Charles Miller said that. Winston Tubman can verify that. He said, I can pick up this telephone now, call Taylor and stop him in his tracks. But we will not do it. Because to do it will mean that we'll be perpetuating Doe in power. So go back home and go fight your war. But there's nothing we can do about it. And there were dead silence in the room. Complete silence, dead silence. We didn't even see the food anymore. The drinks became bitter to us because we didn't even taste it. This man is telling us to come home and prepare to die. Complete silence. For I don't know how long, but we know less than 5 minutes. Everybody just looking at each other, nobody knows what to say the next word. And maybe by the grace of God, they took me along with my big mouth. So I started to talk. I said, Mr. Miller, let me tell you something. I am a student of history. And you can ask Winston Tubman and the other people, they will tell you. I told you, I said, I am a student of history. I know about the Trojans. When they sent the soldiers out to fight, the soldiers are instructed to fight and to die fighting, but to never return defeated. They train the women who marry to these soldiers to become soldiers themselves. And the last command that a soldier, a Trojan soldier, gets from his country is from his wife. She hands him his shield and tells him, go and fight for Troy. Come back victorious, or let them bring you back on this shield. There is no place for a defeated hero here. And so your wife tells you to go, come back victorious, or come back dead. I do not want a defeated husband around me. So I told him we are here on a Trojan mission. We're not going back to tell the Liberian people to prepare to die. We'll not do that. Now we came here because we knew you could give us hope. You could help us to stop this war, and you have the capability to do it. To tell us to go back and prepare to die, we will not accept. So we are Trojan soldiers. We refuse to go home defeated. We have to fight this battle until we win, but we can't go home defeated. You want to kill us? Kill us, but we're not going home defeated. So what is the hope you got for us? Then he answered me. He said, you know what happened? Every year Doe promised us to do something, he will not do it. Everything he promised you were going to do, he didn't do it. Now you want to blame us. Why are you blaming us? Why you don't blame Doe who didn't do what he told us to do? I said, okay, now that is past. Doe didn't do what you say you told him to do in the past. Today, this day, list the things that you want Doe to do, and I will make sure it happens in 30 days. Just list everything you want Doe to do to stop this war, and in 30 days, I'll make sure it happens. He said, how will you do that? I said, I'm his minister of information. I will tell him that he got to do it, or we'll all be messed up. He said, okay. He turned to Ambassador Bishop, who was the ambassador from the United States to Liberia. He was with us at the State Department. And all these things I'm telling you, as Wilson Tubman, Trevor Baga, Maurice Dugley, all these people, when we're talking in the White House, they were there. I'm not making myself look good. I got a big mouth that opens at specific time and just talk some nonsense that become good later on. So I told this man, he turned to Bishop and said, Bishop, he said, Jim, I think that's a good bargain. If Doe can change things in a short while, we can all help him and stop this war. Bishop said, well, you know, that sounds good, the suggestion is good, but I know Doe will not do it. So he said, but Jim, 30 days is not long. Let us just try them. 30 days will soon pass. If he doesn't do it, then you know where he's going. So the man said, okay, take your pen and paper. We took our pen and paper. Number one, tell Doe to organize an early election in which he will not participate. Number two, tell Doe to form a National Human Rights Commission that will not be answerable to him. Number three, tell Doe to remove the ban from all newspapers and radio stations that are closed down with immediate effect, without preconditions. The next thing, tell Doe to release all political prisoners. And he said, when you have done all of this, I will stop Taylor in his tracks. That was the deal. And he said, in order to show our goodwill in helping you stop this war, we will arrange a peace talk between you and Charles Taylor Group in Freetown, Sierra Leone. And that peace talk will be held in our embassy in Sierra Leone. We'll have it on a neutral ground, the American embassy in Sierra Leone. We cannot take it to your embassy. We cannot take it to Taylor camp. We'll not have it in Liberia because Taylor people will be scared to come there. We'll have it in Sierra Leone. We'll have it at the Sierra Leone embassy. So go and tell Doe what we say. When that is done, I will stop Taylor in his tracks. That's how the Americans got involved when I told them that I was there on a Spartan mission. I would not return defeated. They were not going to set me by here. They're going to tell my mom that she was prepared to die. I refuse. We came outside, and I turned to William Clay, Representative William Clay from Grand Judah. I said, William, you heard what these people say? You heard what these people say that they don't respect Doe? You heard these people say that Doe had deceived them every step of the way. You heard what they say? And you and Slanger are convincing Doe in Monrovia that the $1.4 million he gave you for public relations that he gave to Frank Klober and company in Washington, D.C. has made Doe image very good in Washington, D.C. I said, I'm glad they didn't give the money to the Ministry of Information. They give it to you and Slanger, S&G. You came here and went to Frank Klober and company and told Doe that his image was so good. Do you hear what these people say? When I get back, I will tell Doe. As soon as I get back, I will tell him, you lied to him. He just laughed. He said, and that big mouth person that go to Maria and open their mouth, they will see what will happen with them. In 7 days, they will see what will happen with them. They will find a day body somewhere. That's what he told me. While we're staying in a White House yard, we're fussing. I kept that in the back of my mind. I'm not a fool. Marcus Matthews came to me. He said, damn, Bowier, why you pull a fast one? Where you got that thing from that caused us to have this agreement with these people? I said, Marcus, I was desperate. I was not going to tell my mind to prepare to die. I got my little boy there. I'm not going to tell you to prepare to die. I had to say something, so my mouth just opened. I said something. Maybe God made me say it. And we all laugh. Mr. Winston Tubman invited all of us to follow him to his hotel suite where we're supposed to draft a report that he would send by telex to Doe, briefing him on what the people said, so that the things the people were demanding would start to happen, so that it would stop Taylor in his tracks. We got to the hotel. Clay stayed fussing with me. We were seated in the living room of Mr. Councillor Tubman's suite. And Clay grabbed the telephone and dialed it and started talking in Crown. He talked for a long time. Then he said, Bowier. I said, yes, sir. He said, the president of Liberia wants to talk with you. So I go into the phone, pick up the phone. How are you, sir? President Dosa Bowier. I said, yes, sir. Are you the president of Liberia? I said, no, sir, I am not. Nobody voted for me. I'm not the president. He said, but then why you told the point why you achieved Liberia in 30 days? Why you told them that? You got no authority to change anything here? Huh? You got no authority. Look, my man, let me tell you something. You're not part of the delegation anymore. In fact, you're not on the delegation. Come home right now. He slammed the telephone down in my ears. I said, well, Lord, let it down that 7 depart in peace. Because I knew the die had been cast. I went to the White House, opened my big mouth and talked to help us. And somebody turns it around and say that I was acting like I was the president of Liberia. I'm a damage control expert. You got a damage, you call me, I help you control it. We had a damage, I tried to control it, and dumb people didn't understand it and misinterpreted it. So I said, okay. I withdrew in the corner. I didn't say anything to the delegation. I didn't even tell them that the president was vexed with me. Because when the president gets vexed with you, you're not going to tell plenty people. Not only in the past, but now. Anytime a president gets vexed with you, don't tell anybody. Because you tell that person, they're going to call the president and compile your problem. So I didn't tell anybody that the president was vexed with me. So Winston Tubman called me, Bowier. I said, yes. He said, no, tomorrow is the president's birthday. And he'll be 40 years old. And that was me, 1990. I want you to draft for me a telex that I can send to the president congratulating him. So I drafted the telex. The telex simply said, congratulations on the occasion of your 40th anniversary. But the main message I said there is that tomorrow makes you 40 years old. Life begins at 40. That was the code. Life begins at 40. Please don't die at 40. Ask Winston Tubman. I drafted the situation. Life begins at 40, boy. Don't die at 40. The telex was sent. Delegation now knew that our mission in Washington had ended because the White House had told us what to do. The next day, we decided to depart for the Republic of Liberia. I have been telling you about my political, about my social and other things. The other side of me that you don't know, which had an impact on the war, religious side, I just go around here, act dumb sometimes. People just think I don't know what I'm up to. But as I told you, I had a Congo mother who taught me how to read and write. And one of the things that she taught me was to read the Bible daily. We're about 8 living in my home, 8 children. My mother had hypertension, high blood pressure. She attended the Episcopal Church. My father attended the Methodist Church. And in the evening, they all met at the Church of the Lord at Aldura, the same church that said I was going to be born. So some days I go to church with my mother, some days I go to church with my father. And in the evening, we all go to the Church of the Lord, take off our shoes, make noise, and dance. So I came from all kinds of traditions. The Episcopal, the Methodist, the Aladura. The Episcopal, you go there, you know you're supposed to behave yourself and make the sound of the crowd, go sit down easy. You go to the Methodist church, you start singing loud a little bit. When you get to the Aladura, you drop everything, you make noise. So I've been through all those traditions. All of them. My mother assumed that she could get well from her high blood pressure if she could read the Bible regularly. Well, that was what she thought. That was the church also told her that she could be healed. And because her eyes were giving trouble and she didn't want to read too much, she took me to be her reader when I was about 8 years old. All the other children, including my brother Washington that I talk about, all the other children would be in the yard playing. And I would be seated on the floor in front of her bed, in her bedroom, reading the Bible. And I used to be very angry that I could not go out to play. But it was good in the long run because now I don't have to go out and hang out. I can stay in my room the whole day. I live in a library. All my walls are all books. Because my mother locked me up in the room for several years, reading the Bible to her. Once I get in my room and I have books to read, I don't have to leave my room anymore. But she would make me read, and I was angry. I didn't like the woman. I didn't like her at that time because I just felt that she was bad to me. Emmanuel, yeah, read Psalm 121. I will lift up my eyes into the hills from where cometh my help. Read the other Psalm. My God, why have you forsaken me? Read that other Psalm. And I did that for years until I stopped reading the Bible and I just started talking the Psalms. I'm telling you this to say that our upbringing affects us for good or for bad. But I was a very mischievous boy when I was coming up. My mother wanted me to be the best, but I was a bad boy. Because she was superintendent of the Sunday school, teacher in the classroom, and she presided at home, I had to be involved in every church program. And so I learned to say recitation, to sing solos, to sing with a duet, to sing with a glee club, to sing with a choir. And because I learned to sing these solos and say these poems and things, I can talk for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours non-stop. I didn't know she was preparing me for today to appear before you. She took me and sent me into this, from my past, she took me from my past. She said, I will bring this boy up. Send me to the Episcopal Church. She wanted to be an acolyte because she wanted me to go into gospel ministry. Sent me to an old man called Reverend Jackson in Riverside. N.J. Jackson, a graduate of Old Cottington that was in Maryland County. We went there along with my brother, who my father allowed to join the army. Now, I couldn't understand. My brother is just calm and cool, and my father let him join the army. I'm not calm and cool, and he didn't want me to join. I couldn't understand. Because I'm the real army type, but he didn't want me to join. We went to the acolyte class, and this man would go through the ritual of the communion. And before the communion, you go through a certain thing to say, through my fault, through my own grievous fault and all of this. And you'll be going up and down. We got to ring the bell for him to go up and ring the bell for him to come down. He did it with my brother. My brother obeyed everything. Then he gave the bell to me. It was my time to practice. And then we go up and down. I ring the bell. He went up. I rang the bell. He came down. When he was ready to go up again, I did not ring the bell. He turned around, looked at me. I rang the bell. He went up. Time for you to come down, I refuse to ring the bell. How come? I was about 12. How come the old man can't go up and down except I ring the bell? I said, I'm not ringing no bell. He said, go sit in the back of the church. I sat there. After church, he wrote a note, put it in an envelope, seal it up, said, take it to your mom. I took it to my mom. She read it. Manuel, yes, ma'am. Come here. You mean all this training I gave you in this house? You're making me ashamed? Look at what Reverend Jackson said. Do not send Emmanuel back here. He is full of the devil. That's how God expelled from the Episcopal Church. Do not send him back here. He's full of the devil. So I got expelled from the Episcopal Church because I was full of the devil. I didn't ring the bell for somebody to go up and down. I don't know. I mean, if you had explained to me why I should ring the bell, I would ring it. But if you just want me to ring bell for some old man to go up and down, I will not do it. So I was a bad boy. Then I went to the Methodist church with my pa. But all through my years, I never departed from what my mother taught me about reading the Bible on a daily basis. And many of my classmates and schoolmates at the University of Liberia and other places will tell you that I developed something that scared me. I developed something that scared me. I would say something and that thing will happen either on the spot or in a few days. There's a gentleman in town here, he just returned from America last week. Unzuba Kime Gamai. You're my roommate at the University of Liberia. I was at the university when Victor Weeks was also a student there, and we're all in the dormitory. At that time, Victor Weeks and Unzuba were classmates and schoolmates and roommates. We're sitting in the dormitory in a room and we saw Unzuba coming from the Capitol building. And Victor had taken some sangria wine and he was just talking and making noise. And I said, Victor, keep quiet. If you do not keep quiet, when your friend Unzuba that I see coming, when he arrives, you will hurt him. Or move from here, man. Joseph the dreamer always talking all kind of foolishness. I said, okay, Victor. We went on talking. Unzuba came from toward the Capitol building, came towards Simon Greenleaf Hall, the boys' dormitory, the men's dormitory, where is now the Babangida school. Came into the place as soon as he touched the doorknob and opened the door. Victor, who was lying flat on his back, jumped out of that bed and stepped the door. Unzuba's middle finger got jammed in the door. He fell to the floor and fainted. That was less than 5 minutes after I had told Victor he will harm Unzuba. Why am I saying all this? To just tell you, I also took this gift into the government. I did not leave it back. The gift of reading the Bible and seeing what was supposed to be, I took it with me into the government. And that is why I could open my mouth and tell the people in the White House that we're not going back defeated. You got the solution to this problem, you will help us. 30 days time we can solve the problem. We left. When I was leaving here to go to the United States, I had a secretary called Alice Gar at the Ministry of Information. She is from Nimba County. She's now in the United States. During the war, the NSA and other security agencies, including people in the mansion, told me that I had to sack Alice. And I said, why? Because she's in a very sensitive place, the Nimba people fighting against the government, and you can't have a Niba woman as your secretary. I told them I did not bring her there as my secretary. She was there when I arrived. She has done nothing for me to dismiss her, and in fact, she's a civil servant who took the civil service exam, and she was secretary before I arrived. Therefore, if they could find a good reason why I should fire her, I will not hesitate to fire her. Until they could find a good reason, I will listen to nobody. Well, the president himself did not ever approach me on that issue. It was always his under people telling me how the chief was concerned. But if the chief is concerned, let the chief open your own mouth. That's another lesson you should learn in politics. People can tell you, oh, the madam is concerned about it. Well, let the madam talk to you. Because they want to use the madam for their own good. So I refused to sack the lady. When I was leaving for Washington, D.C., I said, Alice, I have a feeling that I might not come back with the delegation. I have a feeling I might not come back with the delegation. I don't know, but I just got that feeling. I will call you and ask you a biblical question, and the answer to that question will determine whether I come back to this country or not. Whenever I called you, I will ask you whether Joseph is sick. If you tell me Joseph is sick, it means that I should not come home now. I will keep asking you that question until you tell me that Joseph is well. Then I will return to Liberia. That was May 1990 when we were leaving with the Topman delegation. I did not even know what was going to happen in America, but I just had a feeling that I would not come back. When I went and all that thing happened with Clay, and the president slammed the telephone in my ear and told me to come home immediately, I decided I was not coming anywhere. But, you know, we went through the motion, we packed our load, prepared to go to the airport. Bowier did not show up. Man Taino's son is no fool. He did not show up. They got to the airport, they couldn't find me, so they left. They came home. And it was announced here that I had defected. BBC had it, everybody had it. That is why when I returned to Liberia, I told Elizabeth Blunt that I would not say one word to you until the BBC goes back and announce that I'm back in Liberia, and the headline of that should be Bowier is back. There are times you have to exercise your hard head. But what I want to tell you here is that I kept calling that lady. Is Joseph all right? She said, Joseph very sick. I saw the boy today. He's not looking well at all. Every day I call her, Joseph was not well. Because they were waiting for me here. Because of what people had lied about since they had consumed the $1.4 million between March and May 1990 and had not done anything about the image of the government in America. They were lying. And because I was determined to expose the lie, they wanted the man to mess with me. But let me go on with the story before we come back home. Do you know that after we met with the white and black people in Congress, this Marlene Damale called us aside and say, I want to see you in my office, the Liberian delegation. We went into his office and asked all these people I told you about, they will tell you. We went to the man's office. He said, look, people, I got something to tell you. He said, you remember when we were in there, I didn't say anything? We said, yes. He said, I had a reason. He said, I'm a black fellow just like you. You are all black. And I came here for us to talk black people talk, African people talk. He said those white people were just polishing everything they were telling you. I came to tell you some raw stuff. He said, your leader is the least respected in the whole world today. We don't respect him. We don't like him. He was our man, but now we don't like him. Ask Mr. Winston Tubman. Ask Maurice Dugley. Ask Joe Bagai. They were all there. We don't like him. He's 40 years old, not so? We say yes. To tell the boy to take his money and go somewhere and enjoy himself. And he repeated it, tell him to take his money, go somewhere and enjoy himself. He no longer has our support or cooperation. If he does not want to leave, or if he does not leave, come October, you will look around and you will not find him. Go and ask Winston Tubman, go and ask Maurice Dugley, Trevor Bagai, all these people whether I'm lying. October 1990, you will look around and you will not find Doe. The Liberian delegation was told in Washington, D.C., May 1990. Tell Doe to take his money, go and enjoy his life with his family. If he continues to stay there, by October 1990, he will not be around. And if you know your history, you knew when he got off the stage. September 9, 1990. September 9, 1990. I must hastily tell you that that delegation returned to Monrovia to put together the report to go and tell Doe what the American people said. I was in America monitoring their activities here. They never told Doe what the American people said about October 1990. They were too scared to put in a report because there were certain people on the delegation telling them not to put in a report. If they put in a report, you will see what we'll do with you. So ask Mr. Winston Tubman to give you a copy of that report that they brought here in May 1990 and find out whether what I'm saying is true or not. First, ask them whether what I've said about Doe not being around in October is not true. Then find out from their report whether they put it in there. You say you want to hear things? I'm here to talk. People don't understand what went on in this country. They talk all kind of foolishness about me. He betrayed Doe. He did this. He did that. I was ready to come up and open up to that guy and tell him what I had to tell him. But I had sense enough to know that if some of his people felt that if I had told him the truth, they were going to kill me in 7 days, I would be stupid to do that. As I said, man, you know, you born no fool. So they came home, they wrote a report, they fussed over the report, they watered it down, and they just told Doe the watered down version. And after they told him the watered down version and he calmed down, then when Doe calmed down, I returned home. But let me tell you what happened. And this is meant for Liberian delegations going abroad. Now, I do not consider this just to be talking to the TRC. I'm a teacher, so I don't talk until I teach something. I don't talk empty talk. My father was what the pastor called non-punyo, the thrower of parables, because you are versed in all kinds of things, especially the verbal arts. I do not talk empty talk. I have to teach as I talk, and I want to teach people in government today. When you go on a delegation abroad, please use your common sense. Do not use hotel telephones to call back home and discuss important things. The people you go to already know the hotel you are in. And so before you arrive, they have fixed it up so that everything you say, they record it. Don't be dumb to discuss things. So some dumb person went on the telephone in a hotel and was telling Doe that I was posing as the president of Liberia and promising to change things in 30 days. Doe got on the telephone, blasted me, and the people there heard all. And they knew that Doe were not going to change. So please don't play the dumb game. The people are more sophisticated than us. You can bring a gangster in our hotel here, even a terrorist. He will talk all day long. Our people here will not even know what he's saying. But you go to America where they got all the freedom of press and freedom of everything. You talk anything, they will know what you're saying. In short, we are dumb. They are smart. Let me go on. I came home after everything had calmed down, and I called my secretary and she told me, no, Joseph is very well now. I said, okay, that's good. Tell him I will soon be there. I got a Swiss Air ticket and flew home. Swiss Air gave me special courtesies because they knew I was the Minister of Tourism. So I was sitting near the cockpit and all of that. Because it was wartime, we didn't know who was who on the flight, so they put me near the cockpit and they made sure that I was taken care of. We came until they announced on the Swiss Air flight, we are making our final descent into the Roberts International Airport. Please fasten your seat belts. They told us about the weather and everything. Then when we were supposed to land, we did not land. The plane took off and went up. The next announcement was, will the Minister of Information please approach the pilot in the cockpit? So I didn't know what was going on. I got up, went to the cockpit. The pilot told me we cannot land in Liberia today. There is shooting around Roberts Field. So we are going back. We'll sleep in Ghana tonight and we'll try tomorrow to come back to Liberia. While you are sleeping in Ghana, think very seriously about whether you want to go back to Liberia or not. If you don't want to go to Liberia, we'll fly into Liberia, we'll lock you up in the cockpit, we'll take down everything and we'll fly you back to the United States free of charge. So think about it while you are in Ghana tonight. I said thank you. We went back to Ghana, they assigned me to a hotel. The whole night I had my 3 radios and I always carry 3 short band radios with me, listen to all of them. Anyone that talk about Liberia, I turn to that one. The whole night I heard nothing about Liberia. So the next day I decided I would go home since I heard nothing about Liberia. Got in a plane, we went again. They said we're making our final approach into Roberts International Airport. Will the Minister of Information please approach the cockpit? I went up there, the captain said, now we are making our final approach. Do you still want to get down or do you want us to take you back to America free of charge? I said, I've come home, I will get down. I'm not going to stay on this plane. He said, okay, thank you, please have your seat, we're about to land. I went back to my seat, fastened my seat belt, and we made a very safe landing on Roberts Field. When I got there, I saw some people in the immigration and the security who I had known and they were my friends. They didn't say anything to me. But I had lived in Liberia so long that when you look at me, I know what's going on. The way they look at me was like I was crazy. Then I knew that something was happening, but they couldn't talk and I couldn't ask them any question. So, I walked into the terminal. And in the terminal, after I had checked out, going to get my baggage, now going into the main terminal, I met Mr. Winston Tubman sitting down with all his things around him. So he said, where are you going? I said, I should be asking you, where are you going, Mr. Chairman? He said, look, let me tell you, I'm leaving this country. I said, what? You leaving this country? I said, what happened? He said, last night, they were shooting all around my house. Gunmen went to the United Nations building and shot a lot of people dead. I'm leaving this country. I'm not going to stay here anymore. Then I wish I could talk with a pilot. It was late. I had already checked out. took my things down. All the security finished saying me, how can I rush back into the plane? I couldn't. So I stayed there and talked with Winston. He just told me, my man, I'm leaving. I'm not going to be here anymore. Now I was trapped. I had to come to town. I didn't know who had been killed, who had done the shooting or nothing. Now listen to this. The Americans had told us that in 30 days, if we could do all the things that they told us to do, they would stop child stealers in their tracks. About 2 weeks after the agreement we made, the people were killed at the United Nations. And the reports coming out of Liberia said it was the forces of the government that did it. And plus the fact that they have monitored our communication with Doe, fussing with me about the presidency, and with Clay and all of that, the conclusion was that he didn't mean business. So that day when I arrived, I went straight to sleep. From the airport, I went behind Musu's spot where I was living. And they had the old Musu spot, not a new one. They had 2 Musu spots, for you who don't know. The old one was the one nearest to the defense ministry. And when you are facing the defense ministry, the new defense ministry under construction, the last house before you get to the fence was where I was living. It was a 4 or 5 room house that the government rented for me. I went straight to bed, cut off the radios, refused to talk to anybody until the next day. And I did not want to talk to anybody except the president of Liberia. That's another lesson. When there is a crisis and you got something important to say to the president, don't tell it to the president, man. Tell it to the president. The man will always change the story before it gets to the president. That's why certain things I've been doing, and I tell people I need to make my report to the president, and people say, oh, you know, she's busy, she's going out of the country, she's doing that. And somebody called me and said, but just give it to us, we'll send it to her. Or she could be reading in the plane while she's going. I said, I'm sorry. If she cannot see me face to face, she will not see it. There are certain things you gave to the person themselves, not to anybody else. Not to anybody else. So I refused to talk to anybody. I slept until the next morning. I told my driver, take me straight to the mansion. Went to the mansion, and then I said I wanted to see President Doe. Everybody was anxious for me to see President Doe to see what would happen now, because I was the runaway defected, the minister who defected. When I opened the door, he was standing up. Welcome back, Mr. Runaway Minister. I said, who you talking to? Me? He said, yeah. I said, why you call me Runaway Minister? What people say you ran away from me, you are not coming back. I said, but then you're not glad I ran back to you. You don't see me standing here? I ran back. He said, okay, sit down, my man. I sat down. He said, tell me, what do the American people want from me, man? What do they want from me? Every time I tell them to help me, they don't want to help me. Tell me, what do they want from me? I said, didn't the delegation give you your report? He said, look, I want to hear from you what the American people want from me. I said, okay, I will tell you straightforward. The American people say if they help you to stop the war, you will not leave from here. You won't be president forever and ever. He busted and laughed. He laughed and laughed and laughed. Is that what they say? I said, yeah. He said, oh, the people don't know that. He said, look, Bowier, let me tell you something here. People don't understand. He said, you see the job here? I said, yeah. He said, not for small children. He said, when I was going to be president at this time, he said, you know why Tubman enjoyed? I said, no. He said, because you were in your 50s before he became president. They job not for small children. He said, look, all my friends, Abraham Colley, all the boys go look for their girlfriend and then nobody talk. Soon I go outside and talk. I can't do anything. I just hear, I'm tired. I don't want to be president. He started making a raging. So I stopped him. I said, are you telling me that you don't want to be president anymore? He said, I don't want to be president. I said, but the problem's solved. If you don't want to be president, the problem's solved. I said, you know what happened? I am calling a press conference tomorrow. and you announce to the Liberian people that you will not run, you don't want to be president anymore. He said, okay, he rang the bell, called Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is here in this country. He's Charles Taylor cousin who are working for Doe as Assistant Deputy Minister for Public Affairs. He now teaches at the Babangida School. He attends the Better World Outreach Church. He lives at Robertsfield. He's my friend, who was classmate on Todi Mission, classmate at schoolmate at the University of Liberia, classmate at Wesley Theological Seminary. He is alive. All of my witnesses are alive, people. Go ask Taylor. Don't ring the bell, call in Taylor. He said, Taylor, you and Bowier go arrange a press conference. I will announce tomorrow I'm not running anymore. I don't want to be president. He put in, I won't be president. Eh? I don't want to be no president. The thing I want to enjoy my life too. I don't want to be no president. He just kept talking. I don't want to be no president. So I was happy that Doe didn't want to be president. So Jonathan Taylor and I arranged a press conference. And he's in this town. Talk to him. We arranged it. Jonathan wrote Doe's speech. Doe saying his speech that he wanted to stop the war and everything. He thought that he would not be president anymore. He wanted to go to London to pursue his PhD. In fact, Dr. James T. Tapper and other people had already started arranging for Doe to go for a PhD after we graduated from the Babangida School. We had only one semester to graduate when the war came. So Doe got in the parlors of the executive mansion, and I want to call on all the press people in this country to go and do their research to find out whether I'm lying. Doe met in the parlors of the executive mansion with the cabinet and everybody, with the press there. Check the Daily Observer that you have that. That was in May 1990, toward the end of May. And Doe announced that he wanted to go to school, he wanted to enjoy his wife Nancy and his children and all of that. He would not want to be president anymore. Observers should have it because they were existing at that time. The other papers, I don't know whether they keep archives, but I think Observer keep a good archive. So when Doe got through talking, everybody clapped. I went up there to the stadium, to the podium as Minister of Information. And I informed the people of Liberia that in my own thinking, since Doe came to power, that the most important statement he ever made, and Doe was sitting right there. I say, and they shouldn't think that he playing politics, because he had genuinely told me that he's fed up and he wants to go to rest. Now that was a good signal to tell the Americans that the 30 day I told you about has started to work already. Because Doe himself said he didn't want to be president anymore. He shook my hand, thanked me very much, felt very relieved, went home, hoping now that things would get into motion so that he would phase out. Well, I can tell you one thing. Before the end of the day, a whole conclave, a whole group of people from the southeast descended upon him and told him that I had been paid by certain foreign people, the Americans, to come and fool him to leave the presidency. They told him that. I have been paid to fool him to leave the presidency. Ask Jonathan Taylor. So from that day on, Doe did not want to see me. President Doe did not want to see me. At one point, I went to see him, and he sent message outside by one of these people. I think Willie was not there by that time. But one of these people, it was not Taylor, but I forgot the person. He sent message out to tell him to go tell our bad news man to go do his work. I don't want to talk with him. He's full of bad news. So the man came to me and said, the president, I'm going to tell you, you're full of bad news, you must go do your work. I said, is that what he told you to tell me? He said, yeah. I said, okay, thank you. Go back in there and tell him that Bowier said he did not come to see Doe. Bowier got no reason to see Doe. Tell him the Minister of Information came to see the President of Liberia. And if the President of Liberia refuses to see the Minister of Information, anything that happens, he should not hold me responsible. I will soon be leaving this mansion. Tell him what I said. They went in and told him. He said, let him come inside. I went inside. He said, yeah, what are you saying? I said, I brought bad news for you. He said, oh, what happened? I said, it's about your mom. He said, what happened to my mom? I said, no, nothing happened to your mom. Your mom did something that I came to tell you. He was standing up looking at me. He said, what my mom did? I said, you don't know? You know that your mom and her boyfriend went to Grand Chile to one lumber company to tell the Togolese comptroller that they wanted money to help you fight the war. The man said he had no authority to give them the money. And he was shot dead. You don't know? You don't know? You don't know that they went to another town and wanted palm wine from the people. The people refused. Somebody was shot dead. They went in less than 1 hour. 3 persons died. You don't know? And he just dropped in his chair like somebody pushed him down in a chair. And he bent his head down and looked between his legs toward the floor for a long time. And I was still standing there looking at him. He gradually, slowly lifted up his head. He said, Bowier? I said, yes, sir. He said, thank you, yeah. Go do your work. Go do your work. He never lifted up his head until I left his office. I went straight to William Clay house. William Clay was living King Avenue area. I told William Clay, I said, I don't understand something. He said, what's that? I said, I just told the president why he man there. He just said, thank you, I'm going to go do my work. He said, oh, Bowier, you told the man that thing? I said, yes. He said, I told you to be careful. Only thing that man like you, but you must be careful. That man will mess with you one day. I said, when that day comes, that will be fine, but my mouth will be open until that day comes. I said, well, is it right? He said, Bowier, you think we don't know about it? All of us know about it, but why you went and told the man about him, man? I said, because I've been telling her about everything that happened in town. Why shouldn't I tell you about him, man? Especially when he knew it, you knew it, everybody was hiding it from me. So I went straight to him to find out whether it was true. Now go and check and find out whether a Togolese man didn't die in one of the lumber company. And people think I was just here as a stooge to President Doe. No, I was the guy who could stand before him and tell him the truth to his face. I challenge anybody to come and to contradict what I've said. Anybody with blood and flesh to come and challenge me. I will call one of my living witnesses, the Chief of Staff, 1990, Henry Duba. Henry Duba called me to the Defense Ministry and said, Bowier? I said, yes. He said, I got something to tell you. And only you can tell the president because I know you. I said, what's that? He said, go tell the president we can't win this war. Go ask Duba. He said, go tell the president we cannot win this war. Because they have commercialized this war. They have taken it from a professional way and they're commercializing it. All these boys go in the net, roll all in the day, come back, tell the president they have killed 200, 300 rebels. He just giving them bags and bags of coins in the mansion. So every gangster formed their group and rolled in the day and come and lie to him. And so they were paying money for rebels that didn't die. So Duba called me, the Chief of Staff. He said, I'm telling you, anything happen here will all be affected. He said, Bowier, your mother had one child, I'm the only child of my mother. We have to make sure that we don't get trapped in nothing here. Go and tell Doe to negotiate with Taylor because we cannot win the war. Duba is right on Benson Street, senior advisor to the Minister of Defense. Go and ask him whether he didn't tell me that. So I said, okay, Mr. Chief of Staff, why are you telling me? He said, Bowier, I know you. When we go to cabinet meeting, all the other people talking politics, you tell Doe the straight talk. That's why I tell you to go tell him. I said, okay, that's good. You know, I'm not scared to tell him that. I said, but I want to ask you something. He said, yeah. I said, when I tell him, he asked me where I get the news from. Should I tell him that you told me? He said, no. I said, but then why? He said, you know, I'm a military man. If I go and say that we can't win a war, you will charge me and they could execute me. I said, okay, then I will find a way to tell him. He said, okay. And when I never told Doe. Because I didn't have any backup. The chief of staff called me again in the presence of Maurice Dugley. And he said, look, I told your friend Bowier to go and talk to Doe. And he know he can talk to Doe because he know how to talk to Doe that Doe will not even get vexed. He will be telling you the truth and Doe will not get vexed. So then he go tell Doe, we can't fight the war. So Dugley, I call you here because you and the man friendly. I want to let you know that I have warned him to go and warn Doe. So when we left, I told Dugley, I said, how can I warn Doe when the man say, if Doe asks me, I'm not going to name. So me, my time ain't born no fool. If I go and say this thing to Doe, and Doe asked Duba said, no, I didn't say so because he had told me I shouldn't call her name. Then I would be left with a bag, and Doe could go and do anything to me thinking that I have joined Taylor. Because when I showed you here at the State Department, the word came that I was friendly with these people. So you see the mess we're in. Real mess. Real mess. The chief of staff of the armed forces of Liberia calls you and tells you, go and tell the commander-in-chief we cannot win this war. And I'm supposed to be the big mouth boy to do it. I was prepared to do it, but I had no backup. I will take you to Freetown, to the peace talk. We ain't get there yet. You asked me about it, we'll go there. But let's finish with Monrovia. Then, we got through with all of this thing. Doe announced this thing. When I went and told him, when the people came and told him I had been paid to fool him, though they want to see me, I became a bad news man. Though they didn't want to see me, but he could not harm me because he had called me to the football field and signed an agreement with me that he wanted me to be his friend. And he had told me that anything going wrong in this country, I should tell him and he will stop. And I was determined to keep my big mouth open and telling him the truth to his face, even telling him about his mom. I'm just saying this today, it happens in 1990. I'm just saying it 2008. There's a time for everything. If you had 6 men in this country like me, we'll change this country. 6. But you got a bunch of cowards talk in the street, meet the president, can't talk to the president, can't tell the president the truth to her face or to his face. That's why I will stay where I am, because you bring me in, you're in trouble, I will tell you to your face. I got this boldness of Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar, your kingdom is numbered. That is the other side of me, my religious side. When I can look at you and tell you something, it come to pass. And it comes to pass. I was editor-in-chief of the New Liberian newspaper. Ninsa Warner was assistant minister. He had graduated from the University of Toledo with all his degrees. He wrote an article and sent it to me to the EJ Royal where we operated, wanting me to publish that article in the New Liberian newspaper when I presided as editor-in-chief. I look at the article, it was badly written. I told the boys not to publish it. I asked Mr. Joe Roberts, he now works with the New Democrat. Told him not to publish it. All my witnesses don't die. Ninsa Warner called after some time to ask why his article was not published. He was told that Bowier said it's badly written, he has to edit it before he can publish it. Ninsa Warner hit the ceiling and said that he graduated from the University of Toledo and I just went to the University of Liberia. He has a degree in this and that and the other. Who am I to edit his paper? I sent back to tell him, Ninsa, I am editor-in-chief of the New Liberian newspaper. My job is to be the gatekeeper. Nothing will pass and go into this paper unless I edit it. You are assistant minister, I work under you, but when your paper arrives here, it is under me. I'm not criticizing you, I'm scrutinizing your paper. He called me into the Ministry of Information. I went there, he took me into the office of Peter Naiga, who was minister. I want this man suspended for insubordination. So Peter Naiga started to investigate. He started to get loud and this and that. Peter Naga said, okay, Jimmy is here, you the deputy minister, take these people into your office and investigate. Mr. Jonathan Raffle was assistant minister at the information ministry. He's alive. Ask him about what I'm about to tell you. All my witnesses, God just kept the people living. They don't die. Jonathan Raffle was there. We got into the office. Nisa wanted to start making noise. He escalated his demand from suspension. He wanted me to be dismissed for insubordination. This day you will be dismissed. I was sitting in the chair just looking out of the window at the sun. And suddenly my big mouth opened. Asked Jonathan Redford, he was in that room. I said, Nisa Warner? He said, yes. I said, I want you to look outside. Look at that sun. You see that sun? He said, yes. Before it sets, you will be dismissed. And I sat down in my chair and kept quiet. I didn't know why I said it. I just said it. My big mouth opened. You will be dismissed before that sunset. Then he said, you see what I tell you? The man he's insubordinate. He does that. While you are making all that noise, there was banging on the door of Mr. Jimmy Isia's office. Jonathan Redford were in that office. When the door opened, there were 3 SSS officers standing at the door. The head of state wanted to see Nisa Warner. They took him to the mansion. They took the minister, Peter Naiga, out to the mansion. They spent about 2 hours there. They came back with 2 letters. One letter dismissing Nisa Warner, another letter appointing Weedeh Koba to succeed him. Refer ran to me and said, Bowier, I beg you, no matter what I do to you, don't ever say anything against me. Refer is in town here. Why am I saying this? To just tell you that when God anoints somebody to do something, leave them alone. I'm just a troublemaker man today just to talk. I couldn't fight, so I ran away when the war came. I fight with my mouth. And I tell the truth to power. You can be king, queen, or emperor. I will tell you the truth. William Tell says, my knees shall bow to God and God alone. My life may be in the emperor's hand, but my conscience is my own. I bow to nobody. I'm just telling you that to tell you the religious side of myself. People don't know. They got all kind of popes and bishops around here. I'm not a pope, I'm not a bishop, I'm nothing. But if I tell you something, you better go and check it out. You better go and check it out. So we went, we came, and the Americans arranged the Freetown Peace Talks. The Interfaith Mediation Committee was organized, comprising Christians and Muslims. One of your commissioners, Sheikh Kafuma Kone, served as the co-chairperson of that group. He was one of those who took us to Freetown to meet with our friends from the National Patriotic Front, or the, what do you call it? They were National Patriotic Front, or what were it called? National Patriotic Front of Liberia. We were leaving from here to go to the MPFL negotiation. Again, though they did not want me around anymore after people told him I was fooling him to leave. He sent me to Brussels on a conference that had no business going on, simply because he didn't want to see me anymore. I came back from Brussels. He sent me to Nigeria. I went to Nigeria. By the time I came back, he said, you're going to Freetown with this group. So he kept sending me out. And you know what happened? It was because I was out that the airfield and everything got closed behind me, and I didn't go to the free port with him. Sometimes when you think you're doing somebody bad, God mean it for good. So those people who were behind him, who wanted to be ministers, again I'm telling you, please check Mr. Valentine and let him check the records at the mansion for May 1990, when Mr. Moses Washington And the press secretary to the president, Mr. Patrick Kuman, drafted a letter to Doe telling Doe that they had arranged with Focus on Africa to go there and lobby with Focus on Africa so that they can stop saying bad things about President Doe. And they had brought a proposal to me, and I had refused to endorse the proposal. Therefore, they were constrained to take it directly to Doe. Go and check for that letter so the Liberian people can know that I'm not a fool. So that my press people can know that my journalism never got messed up. Never. They told the man that they could go to the BBC and bribe Focus on Africa to stop saying bad things about Liberia. I told them, I know one way to stop saying bad things about Liberia. Stop doing bad things. Once you stop doing bad things, who will talk about the bad thing? Because there will be no bad things to talk about. Somebody in the mansion who was my friend photocopied the document and brought it to me. May 1990, when they were looking for all the people who were supporting the rebels, supporting this, supporting that, those people wrote to Doe and told Doe I was against him. That was the last letter, that was the 10th time I have been taken to Doe in 10 years. Because I talk the truth. I'm saying again, I challenge anybody in the Republic of Liberia, in fact on earth, to come here and tell me that what I have been saying here is not true. I challenge anybody. Anybody, from top to bottom, come and tell me it's not true, I'll disprove you. So, though they didn't want to see me anymore, because people had told him I was fooling him to leave the presidency, and then his deputy minister for information and his press secretary had been telling him that they wanted to go and fix his image up in BBC, and I was messing up with his image. So what did they do? They suggested to Doe that he should get them $5,000 each to go to London. And then he should get them an undisclosed amount, because that amount was not put in the letter, to go and lobby with BBC, Focus on Africa. Doe authorized the finance ministry to give them the money. Check the mansion, you will see that letter there. I got my copy but not giving it to you. You let your research people work. Check the mansion. They gave them $5,000 each, and they gave them an undisclosed amount of money to go to the BBC and bribe the people. I said, look at that. I work with the National Press Club, with BBC correspondent, a Chinese correspondent, French correspondent. Then I will leave the National Press Club and come to Liberia and take some money in the envelope and go to London and say I'm going to bribe Focus on Africa, so that forever until I die, that foolishness will be behind me. And when I die, my children will have that record. My little girl who is getting a degree now in television broadcasting will be able to say that you're not fit to be there because your pa did this. I refused. So they reported me to Doe, and he believed them. Of course, when a man is jammed, he will believe anything that somebody said to make him to fix him up. When Patrick Kuman got his money, his $5,000 and other things, he ran out of here and went to sit in Freetown where he went to school. Smart boy. From Freetown, he went to Minnesota. He's still in Minnesota enjoying himself. Bowier is the one who got to go to Freetown to peace talk. Mr. Moses Washington, when I got that letter, I called a senior staff meeting. And you can go to the Ministry of Information, you can ask the people, Mrs. Nora Johnson, who was the personnel director, who I promoted to Assistant Minister for Personnel. She's there. She's in this town or somewhere. I can give you her telephone number. She was in that meeting. Mr. John Bass, the Assistant Minister of Tourism, was in that meeting. I think Mrs. Scholastica Doe and other people were in that meeting. I told Moses, I said, Moses, I called this meeting to tell you something straightforward to your face. I saw the letter you wrote to President Doe. I saw what you told him about me. I write no letter. I said, Moses, I beg you, you wrote a letter. I have a copy of the letter with your signature, you and Patrick Kuman. I show up on my first Holy Communion. If I ran a letter, I might die. I said, Moses, you would die. Moses, you would die because you wrote the letter. I said, but I just want to tell you something. I have not done anything wrong to you. You want to be minister? Wait on your time. Wait for the fullness of time. I succeeded guitar way. Not because I undermined him, it was because you undermined him. You went to the mansion and told the mansion a lot of things about him, and you wrote a lot of things about him that I got to see. When you undermine him enough and the president didn't want to see him, the president brought me. Then you start to undermine me. That's why you brought the casket and all the foolishness in this yard. I said, but let me tell you one thing. We don't know how the war will end. But unless I've done something wrong, when the war ends, I hope to see you. That's what I told him. I hope to see you. Because I might be around here. I told him in a staff meeting, he swore to his first communion. I left. I came back. I don't see him. I don't see him. Touch not my anointed, do my prophets no harm. Leave me alone, leave Bowier alone. You don't know where he came from, you don't know where he's going. There's a warning to a lot of people. Leave me alone. I'm crazy. Let me sit down in my cassava patch in my one room that my mom was building for me for the rest of my days. I don't finish it, my children will finish it. But leave me alone. When I took over the day I took over, Commissioner Massa Washington had just entered the ministry as a cadet when I took over the Ministry of Information. April 1987. And I told them that day, cry your own cry and leave Bowier alone. Actually, that's why I told them, I sang the song for them, cry your own cry, leave me alone. You hammer me, somebody will hammer you that greater than me. So yeah, please leave me alone. I thank all my friends who've been calling me and say, well, you gotta be careful how you talk, you know, this town here bad. No, this town here not bad. God is better than everybody. I'm not gonna be careful with nothing. I will say everything I have to say because you lie on me long enough. This is the time for me to talk. You won't kill me? Kill me, my kids. That will be long with a lot of truths in it. Okay. So I left and went to Freetown, Sierra Leone with a delegation. While we're preparing to go on our delegation that included Jikin Scott, Tangaba Jangaba was the chairman of that delegation. You had Ane Jikin Scott, you had Ane Bala, you had Ane Major General Albert B.S. Kape, who was ambassador to Freetown, Sierra Leone. And all of that were there. Kekula Boto was not a member of the delegation, but because he liked to be where he likes to be, he was in Freetown trying to convince Momo that he was very important here. But he was not an official member of the delegation. So I can't call him in. I was a member of the delegation. We arrived in Freetown, but before we arrived, we had a meeting at the Information Ministry. And Major Jikin Scott, Major in the Armed Forces of Liberia, came to that meeting, a planning meeting in the Ministry of Information. There we had a planning meeting in my office. He was, and we called in the defense people. Mr. Burma, General Burma Bartley was defense minister, but he sent somebody, he didn't come. And Major Jikin Scott was telling the defense people, we are going to confront the MPFL in Freetown, Sierra Leone. We cannot go to Sierra Leone from a point of weakness. We have to go there from a point of strength. In about 3 or 4 days, the conference will start in Sierra Leone. What can you do in that time that will push them back so that when we get there, we can speak from a point of strength? And they were there talking about the military strategy and all kinds of things. While we're there talking, somebody came, say, I forgot, Walter Richards, Reverend Walter Richards, and some people from Clay Ashland had come, and they wanted to see me and see members of the delegation. So we said, yes, what happened? Van Richards has been killed, brutally murdered. That's the day I heard about it, and that's how I heard about it. Came to the Ministry of Information. Somebody had killed Van Richards. For what? I do not know. How? I do not know. Where? They only say in Clay Ashland area, I assume. So that was the situation, and because they came and brought Van Richards' death announcement, the whole planning session was very sad. So Jingiska did not succeed in getting the military to push back the MPFL before the conference. We arrived in Freetown, Sierra Leone. We arrived there, and our plane was diverted to another portion of the airport where the other planes did not land. The Sierra Leonean immigration man came to the plane, and we were about to get off the plane, and he said, no, we should stay on board. Somebody was coming before we could get off. When we got there, when we looked, we saw a tall, black, African-American man who came to the plane, introducing himself as the political officer at the American embassy, and stating that he had come to receive us. So Barbara said to the immigration man, the Sierra Leonean, why would this American man come to receive us when we are in Freetown, Sierra Leone? The poor immigration guy who knew what was going on turned to Barbara and said, my brother, now so in B.O. In short, such is the time, Barbara, such is the condition. We know we got this country, but we know who controls it. So Barbara and the American guy got into an argument. And unfortunately for Barbara, he had gone into Freetown, and when he was getting off the plane, few gunshots dropped from his pocket onto the tarmac. He quickly picked it up, and we just, something was about to happen. People wanted to raise issue, but that was quickly taken care of. The American man couldn't talk much because that was not his country. The Sierra Leone immigration man was glad for whatever he could get. So as you know, the custom all over this place, he saluted Barbara and walked away. Then when we started to go to the terminal, they took us to somewhere back, not to, even to the VIP, somewhere back in the back place. And Barbara started to continuously, talk. And Jangaba said, Bala, lead this thing. And Barbara said, no, I can't lead this thing. They're not the people country. Why do we come and do this thing here? So the man turned around. After he brought for us some glasses. This American man took over the show and started to serve us. He brought us glasses to drink. And he brought a very large bottle of Coca-Cola. The large bottle, the largest Coca-Cola makes. And he put it on the table. And he opened it up. And then he told Barbara, this is Operation Coca-Cola. This is Operation Coca-Cola. Ask Barbara, you interview him in Washington, in America, call him and ask him about Operation Coca-Cola. So the Liberian situation was Operation Coca-Cola. I did not understand it until later on. Coca-Cola is, when you open it up, it had all this effervescent action. You pour in a glass, it calms down, and then you drink it. And that's how the war started. All this action, action, this and this and this and this. And suddenly there was September 9 and everything came down. Operation Coca-Cola. Ask Bala, you want to know the story? I'm prepared to tell. I told you I wanted 7 days to talk. Because we got to talk everything. So you don't have to, where you think these people were behind it, you think that when I finish explaining and you don't know who behind it, you got to be dumb. Okay. So they took us to town, put us in the Mami Yoko Hotel, courtesy of the government of Liberia. And the negotiations started June 1990 with Sheikh Kafuma Kone, Bishop Michael Bakala Francis presiding. Moulton was there too, Levy Moulton. Yeah, Moulton was there. And we started off with Canon Budget's car leading the devotion in conjunction with Sheikh Kafuma Kone. I have a complete recording of that session of the devotion and the opening session of that conference somewhere on earth. Canon Budget's car started off by reading the portion of the Bible when Nehemiah said, "Look at the disgrace that has come upon us. Look at the disgrace that has come upon us. Come and let us work together so that we may not experience disgrace anymore." Sheikh Kafuma Kone read from the Quran and talked about unity and all of that. And we went into the situation. There was no United Nations person present. There was no OAU person present. By that time, ECOWAS was a far distance away. It was the Interfaith Mediation Committee that presided over the first peace talk in Freetown, Sierra Leone. I would like to ask for 2-minute leave of absence, and I will be back to continue my story. I hope you have patience to listen because I do not talk lies to hurry up and talk. I have to talk the truth and I have to talk it in logical sequence. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.